Driveline R&D, podcast episode 91. This is Alex Caravan, Director of Data Science. Although maybe I can talk about it specifically a different role I'm doing now as well. Drinking an oolong green tea, joined by some fresh faces as hosts. Boddy, take it away.
Kyle Boddy, founder, Driveline Baseball. Now the interim director of R&D, crushing a Rainier.
Max?
Max Engelbrekt. I'm the director of product management software. I have a green tea as well.
Garrett York, director of software engineering, and I have a red berry ghost energy.
So, been a bit of a break since the last R&D podcast episode. Also, complete revamp and host. So figured I'd talk about it for a little bit. Time to see how many hardcore R&D pod fans are just fans of Lindley and Brady with how audio and podcast numbers do after this. But yeah, past host Kyle Lindley, Anthony Brady, as well as past guest Dan O'Coin, now working for the Philadelphia Phillies. Great ex-coworkers, great ex-co-host. You boys trying to keep this podcast chugging along. Got the new heads of R&D here. We'll see what kind of new guests we have as well in the future. I mean, I personally want to expand it a little bit more to other sport analytics guests as well, make it a little bit less niche. But yeah, I mean, again, quite the revamp for any hardcore fans. Hopefully, this means for anyone listening that your boy can get away with a couple more lewd dating stories in the last couple minutes of that podcast episodes. That's the main reason I got Lindley and Brady out to the Phillies now. But anyways, given that kind of transition, you guys want to talk about new direction stuff, what R&D is headed in? But Boddy, you kind of came in and took over sports science. You know, I mean, we always do in the off season. We always have people leave for other teams, and MLB teams obviously are worth billions of dollars and can consistently, for lack of a better word, like give our employees more fiscally appealing offers. We've had in the past a ton on trainers leaving for director roles with hometown teams, so forth. This last offseason was a big loss of R&D employees. I think our first big one where we really had to evaluate and kind of see what R&D career pathing looks like in Driveline. For many years, it was about working on something fun, working on something passionate, pushing forward kind of the intellectual paths our employees wanted to, without necessarily like tying it to business goals at the end of the road. So now that we've kind of reshuffled a little bit, I think the view is a little bit more clear on how R&D is going to work with the training floor and stuff. But anyways, enough rambling. But Boddy, how is it from your point of view coming back into R&D?
Yeah, past couple of months have been quite the whirlwind, as you know. So Caravan and I have been working. I mean, all four of us have been working together super closely. And yeah, this off season's been tough. Obviously, with losing some of our most distinguished and senior leadership here, doing great work. We wish them all the best. Obviously, it's a great opportunity for them. But what we're going through, it's just that's the life of being at the edge, right? We're always at the industry best products of what we make, But I think you're right. With R&D, it hasn't really been that kind of velocity of recruitment, and that's just how it is, but the business has never been in a better financial spot. I mean, many thanks to Alex Caravan, not to pimp him too hard on this podcast, but he's done awesome work in the other role that he's in. that's helped, and I'm sure he'll talk about it. I'm not going to spill the beans on that. Let him do it. But our internship pipeline has been excellent. I think that's something. That's right. Well, I mean, a little bit actually, and our internship pipeline has been awesome. So we have such qualified interns coming in. We just hired our 4 that we're going to do with sports science. And it was a really competitive process. Had about 80 applicants, probably 12 to 15 highly qualified. It was not an easy choice. So, it's just about rebuilding and giving people opportunities here to progress. And I think that's what Driveline stands for. So I'm excited. Obviously, it's a lot of work to get everyone up to speed and to build our systems to be resilient. But I'm excited for the challenge. And I know that Garrett York is going to be a big key to make that happen.
Yeah. Max, what about you? Who do you think was a better host, Lindley or Brady? Who do you think is a bigger loss for the podcast?
We're saving the tough questions for him, man.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, they had different talents, but I only hosted once with Lindley, so I'll give Lindley the edge there.
Dude, I mean, yeah, and Brady's dad is probably our highest, probably our most likely past guest or past listener to retain. So that'll be interesting what he says. But and in York, first time having you on the pod, man. Obviously, we've been working together really closely for years. I think one thing as well that I do, I mean, while it sucks losing, multiple very valuable R&D employees, many of them are close friends. I think it is kind of nice that all four of us are like now like back in the trenches, really. Like not just as directors, but also like we're lean enough that we're all doing like any work from intern level work all the way to director, vision, strategy, planning. York and I have worked very closely over the years. When we first embedded Edge in a TRAQ, we were pulling like, I don't even know how you describe it. It was just like, I mean, it was when kind of COVID started too. So work-life balance was at an all-time extreme. But, just every day kind of hopping on Zoom spontaneously at like 9:30 to make sure like the input-output arrays connected, like whatever it is. And then now that, I'm working on the business operations side of things too. Got my new role as a VP of business operations, and York like had already done a ton of work on the software engineering side of biz ops. So we're almost back in the same position now, right? Like I'll hit you up, be like, yo, time to hop on a quick Zoom and just spec it out. But what's your vision on kind of new projects that we're working on and new priorities?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've had personally particularly had a heavy focus on some biz ops stuff for the last like 3 to 6 months. Probably, obviously, still have a little bit of a hand in that. It is nice having the particularly an additional technical person on board doing some of that. So yeah, no, it definitely reminds me of like the 2019 initial Edge launch days, and 2020 putting that into TRAQ. But really, I think probably the biggest thing that we need to do right now is just really take inventory of all the different things that we've built. We've built a pretty wide array of tools and automations and so forth, and really just like nail down which ones are going to last and which ones are maybe need to be sunsetted sooner, and then really give focus to the ones that we think could push the business forward moving forward. Yeah,
it's a different spot that we've been in, because traditionally we've always been kind of like, what's the next big thing, like how to layer on the R&D stuff. And we've done a really good job, like getting customers interested in like almost every stage. We have like consulting clients on the biomechanics side, specific consulting clients that pay for APIs, software clients, a ton, like more training floor leads than ever, partnerships across the globe, matches in Australia, which you should talk about for a little bit. But now it's like, dude, like we have so many things to kind of maintain and like pursue. And we're still working on some exciting new stuff that I want to talk about later in this podcast, but it's the goal and vision is like way more clear than ever. I think especially for our roles, like we know what we need to do. We just need to like actually do it and kind of prop stuff up.
Yeah. I think most of the things that we need to work out in the grand scheme of things are pretty trivial. There's obviously some finer technical details that have to get worked out in that mix, but as a whole, in terms of what needs to be built and when, I think we have a pretty solid understanding of what that looks like.
Yeah. Max, how's Australia? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we've worked with Baseball Australia going back, Boddy would know even better, but probably like 6-8 years or something like that. You were in Australia.
Yeah, about 6 years ago I was in Australia.
Yeah, and so they've got some coaches that have come out to Driveline a few times, and they've got a really exciting growing amount of baseball talent coming out of Australia. And so every year they run the youth baseball championships. And so Boddy and I were at ABCA with several other Driveline people. And then I actually flew from Nashville to Sydney, which took about 24 hours after you include layovers, and then was out there for the 16 and 18U championships. They were really early adopters of TRAQ, and really most of the products we've done, they've been really early on to using. And so, yeah, I had a ton of fun. I basically got to go see Sydney, which obviously I'm love traveling, so that was a nice bonus as well. But got to spend about 35 hours or so with coaches over 4 days, and then go into the city in the evening. So yeah, really, really, really fun.
Yo, so I mean, like, I know because I've traveled with a bunch of Australians, but for anybody who hasn't, what's your you meet up any Australian drinking companions? You seen Australians go ham at the bars?
Not too much there, because they would be working from like 8 till like 10 or 11 at night, 8 in the morning to like 10 or 11 at night. So no, I did go to the Opera Bar, which is right next to the Opera House, right on the water, and went with Aaron Rhodes, who's one of our sales managers. He had never been out of the country. Rhodes has never been to California either. He's like
really?
Bizarrely, well, he's from the East Coast. He's pretty bizarrely traveled. So by the end of the trip, we'd been there for 6 days, and I'd been gone for 2 full weeks. And so I came back, but Rhodes just had gotten out there. So I'm like, you should definitely stay. And so he got to stay out for like an extra 4 days. And I think it cost him like $50 to push back his flight. It's like the cheapest trip he could ever get. He's got all the PTO that you do as well, Caravan, that expires in like 2 months. So he could not have found a better trip to do. But our last day there, we went to Bondi Beach, which is one of the more famous beaches in the world, watched the sunrise, and then just hung around for like 4 or 5 hours. I watched from my phone the Seahawks lose in the playoffs. I'm glad I didn't watch that. But yeah, really, really fun trip.
So the only game of the playoffs I've seen this year, Seahawks and Niners. I actually put money on did Brady tell you, or did you hear? I convinced Brady to put money on the Seahawks, and they were down like 14-13 in the second quarter.
Yeah, people were talking about it in Sydney, actually. Yeah.
No, isn't Australia kind of expensive? Like food and like I don't know about housing, but
the dollar is I can't speak too historically, but I think their dollar has the U.S. dollar is very strong, and so $1 is like 67. $1 Australian dollar is like 67 cents in the U.S., so it wasn't very expensive this time while we were out there, but it might be different other times in history.
Yeah, maybe it's just traveling wise, but every time I've traveled and seen Australian people, they're always like going the hardest, dude. Like I was on this boat with like 10 Australian people sailing from Colombia to Panama a few years ago, and just like day drinking from dawn to dusk. But anyways, Boddy, I mean, one thing that I'm excited about you kind of coming back in R&D, I think, is like also just like you've always been, in my eyes, and I think many people in the industry's eyes, like a strong visionary, and have seen like things that people in the industry like still don't see, right? Like I think we're still ahead in many ways, and we've discussed that privately as well. But I think both your initiative for action, like hopping on projects right away and kind of pushing them, and vision has been like pretty exciting for sports science, where like the base has been built so well for over the last couple of years, and now you've been able to kind of come in with a fresh perspective and already like push forward on a few projects. Do you want to talk about some of that stuff and what's changing in sports science?
Yeah, I mean, first you gotta give credit to those who built the Launchpad.
Yeah.
You know, with Anthony Brady obviously being, the biggest contributor in my opinion. Guy sacrificed a hell of a lot, for this company, and I think he deserves a lot of credit.
I think hike up the audio a little bit. Hike up the audio a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Talk a little louder. You want me to really gas up Brady?
Yeah. Keep giving Brady props.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sorry, I was trying to be quiet about it, but no. I mean, Brady's done a hell of a job for us, and he's going to do a hell of a job anywhere he goes. So, I mean, without that, we can't iterate, right? We can't do fun stuff without someone who left it in a position to iterate on, right? So, big thing that we can do, I think, going forward is really improve the automation of what we're doing. I think that's the biggest thing. And then you and I have talked about that. So then there you have the stuff that's breaking the internet right now, right? With ChatGPT, obviously Bing just rolled it out in their search engine. I don't know if you saw that. It's going to be in the previews there. And then Google just had a hasty press release. after saying like it's not that big of a deal. Obviously it's a huge deal, right? So the ability to use something like a language learning model or LLM or a transformer, you really got to look at that. How is that going to transform your business? And from our perspective, I think if you can train something on our database, with the millions and millions of records that we have, thinking about how we can run something 24/7 that's constantly learning, that enables people from an intern to the most senior employee to ask questions of the database in natural language. I think you got to really take a hard look at that and see how possible that is. So that's, as everyone on this call knows, probably know better than York about how much infrastructure stuff we're doing over the last week and this week about changing our databases, migrating them, and building out our infrastructure. A lot of that is with an eye on expanding the artificial intelligence capabilities of our business. Obviously, we use a lot of machine learning. Caravan's the lead in that, doing 99%, if not more, of the machine learning and the modeling we're doing here. But there is another step forward, right? There is computer vision, there is artificial intelligence, and that's, I know you have an eye on, and I do too, because I think that's going to be I think it's going to change the world in a big way. I think it already has in the last month. I think it has a chance to change our business and the industry again, and I think we need to get ahead of that, and we are. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I mean, even I was curious if you want to talk about even like because usually we usually go pretty niche on some of the projects we've worked on internally. I was curious if you want to talk about like the gap detection, modeling, and even like forward dynamics if you thought it was worth kind of touching upon, getting some fans salivating at the chops.
Oh yeah. People love automation stuff. Right now, if you're out there and you have worked in a motion capture lab or know anything about that, I mean, there's just a lot of marker filling. A lot of interns and full-time employees have to spend a lot of time, cleaning that data, whether it's Hawkeye, TRAQ, marker-based data. It doesn't matter, and there's just a lot of that. That's a full-time job, to do that. And we're very close within, by April 1st for sure. We'll have rolled out a fully production pipeline that cleans, at least 90%, and we believe over 98% of all of our data automatically. And that's huge. We'll be the first to ever do it. Definitely in baseball. I would imagine in most motion capture labs, I've never seen anyone else that has a model that good, or even has one at all. So that's awesome. And that's just basic machine learning. That's just basic algorithm, basic statistics.
Yeah.
So imagine where we can go if we can really build in a transformer, an LLM, some real AI stuff.
Yeah. No, it's cool. You've got you got Kyle Wasserberger leads or principal sports scientist, and then Joe Marsh back in sports science. I don't know what his role is. Doesn't really matter. But you've got him bought in on it too. Like I've seen Wasserberger he's been posting updates like on the validation, and I know you guys are approaching it in a really thorough way. So that's really exciting to see. I was going to say also, one thing I just talked about with you last week to confirm, and I don't know if you guys know Garrett or Max, but as of like last Friday, or I guess as of like last Sunday, Wasserberger and I are gonna be at SABR next month to present. And even though it sounds like I totally shoehorned myself in here, I dropped that note in Team Research and Dev, like Scott Bush, who's the chair of SABR, who I've worked with in the past. When I presented a couple years ago, reached out to me, asked if we had some biomechanics stuff. Was had something, but he had a couple other things going on. He didn't know if he wanted to do the thing solo, so I offered to kind of help him out. So yeah, we're going to be in Arizona. We're going to be in Phoenix first week or second week of March, which is exciting. We're going to talk about a few things. A lot of this is going to be talking about a bunch of the biomechanics data, like really high quality stuff we've collected, even specifically in the last 1 to 2 years, as we brought on Wasserberger and other people on board, and using and talking about his ratio model and modeling deviance from residuals in many aspects to kind of see where someone lies in a biomechanical assessment and overall like intensity level. And we're also going to talk about OpenBiomechanics, which is super exciting, something that you pushed, Boddy. But we released a repo of open source, both pitching and hitting biomechanics, and that includes like visual 3D models, like the text files we run into our own databases. And I forget, I think it's been forked like over 20 times, which is not like a mind-blowing number, but to let you know, like people have already kind of taken some of it, started experimenting with it. I think it's another added check on the intern pipeline, right? People that like that excuse is gone kind of a little bit, right? Like as someone who's looked through hundreds of internship applications, and one of the things we always talk about is we value open source work. And I've seen, I've seen some great open source work, but I've also seen answers like, oh yeah, like don't have anything. My work like doesn't let me share anything. Like, okay, there's a ton of stuff. If you want to work in sports, one of the most competitive fields, there's a ton of stuff you can do that doesn't involve stuff you do at work. And then if you don't have a good data source or don't know how to scrape the baseball savant, whatever, like there you go. We're putting out really high quality, very elite sample size of biomechanical data. So that's been exciting. So we'll probably talk about a bunch of WAS's modeling, some new biomech initiatives, and then also the Open Biomechanics project for people that want to kind of pipe in and add to the community, the growing community in my mind of biomechanical data analysis.
One thing I'll add there, just to give you some stats on the repo. There's 9 people watching. It's been forked 19 times and starred 114 times.
That's what I'm talking about. That's why I wanted you're on this pod.
Yeah, buddy. I was gonna say have to put that in the show notes, the link to that repo so people can access.
We've already heard from multiple professors who are using it as like their class documentation. So if they're teaching a kinesiology class, that's just gonna be part of the syllabus. And that idea is really exciting. It's very humbling. But I think you're right. And we both have seen what Open Pitch Effects did for Fangraphs, what it did for Baseball Prospectus, and what it did for all of us. And so I think this is hopefully the first step in that regard, because we've done as much as Driveline has pushed the field of biomechanics, and make no mistake, we are at the edge. There's so much more to go, and the best way to push it is to have open source people look at it and really inspire people with a different viewpoint, I think.
Yeah, of course.
I was gonna say one question I've got. It sounds like, just overall, like the Open Biomechanics database and so forth is probably one of the maybe first open source data sets that folks have access to on that. Do you think that'll inspire, whether it's, even some of the tech companies, whether it's Blast, TrackMan, who knows, to follow suit, or do you think that that's still far enough away that maybe that value's not seen yet?
I hope so. I don't know. I just think corporations they don't see a lot of value in it. But if you look at the software community, clearly it does. It clearly works.
Sure.
So I don't know. I hope so. I hope it's a start. I would love to see a repository of blast sensor data and anything else, batted ball data, whatever. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, Caravan?
About future data sources?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think talking about like there's one idea that we talked about a couple years ago. I don't know if you guys remember internally about. I think Dan and I were spitballing it on a Basecamp post, and Mike kind of shut it down because he probably accurately brought up that it was going to take a ton of bandwidth. What was having like huge paired data sources like the Blast and HitTrack stuff that we kind of initially built a bunch of our big 3 hitting grades and insights that still powers our hitting floor to this day. That definitely still powers our hitting floor to this day because Android just submitted a help R&D request overnight on fixing a StatCast hitting dashboard. But yeah, we talked about like kind of like having that almost be like almost running our own SABR competition. And again, probably a huge project, something like maybe down the road we'll kind of consider doing, but definitely a big undertaking. But to me, that's still a very unique environment that we can churn high quality paired data where we standardize the training intensity. We standardize like the number of reps, pitches, pitchers, things we manipulate the bats, balls, like all this stuff. I think makes our like lab very, very unique and still, almost impossible to replicate. So I think paired data sources coming out of that lab will continue to be like unique to us. And if we push that forward and push like the insights built from that forward, which we do through like TRAQ and Edge, I think that's still a large edge that we're going to hold. Max, you want to talk about what you see coming down the pipeline on the TRAQ and Pulse side now? A lot of the Pulse stuff runs through you. That's been handed down from Lindley, and obviously like we've talked about it online too. Like there's a ton of stuff that we can do with Pulse and that we were kind of doing with Pulse. I think now there's an opportunity to streamline and make it even more, make its strengths even more effective. And we've talked about gearing a few things specifically for colleges during the season as well. Traditionally, we've used TRAQ as much more of an off-season or training, programming, athlete management system. And now I think we have enough firepower under the hood to really let it be like actually like very, very useful day in, day out, like 365 days a year. But yeah, what do you see there as the vision changes?
Yeah, I think with both products at this point, they're pretty mature and at least like their feature set. And so a lot of what we're going to do with TRAQ and Pulse over the next year is not so much build like entirely new features or entirely new sets of tools. But kind of similar to what we're doing with a lot of other areas of the company is focused on more automation and what we can do to make it as low touch as possible for trainers to get the most amount of insight and then deliver that to their athletes. And so something like automated reports, something like we're seeing more and more TrackMan data come into the system. So try to see how much of that we can automate ourselves without requiring, say trainers to like upload files themselves. And then using more of our development long-term, for something like app development, which is something I'm pretty excited to work more with York on. But we do have iOS developers on staff, and so the most requested thing we've gotten on the TRAQ side for a really long time now was something like, why isn't this an app? And so that's what we're going to work towards building over the course of this year to deliver. It'll make things better for all TRAQ users, as well as internal people that train with Driveline, whether you're on one of our academy teams or one of the big leaguers that trains with us. So, with a more mature product, you can start looking at features that take a longer amount of time to deliver on, but are much higher value, and then can also, in the short term, focus on just little things that we can do. So, like we added a move workouts feature last week, which is like a relatively small feature add, but was one of the main things that we had requested over the last 2-3 months. So I think there's a lot of stuff like that we can do on both the TRAQ and Pulse side, both short and long term.
How many past Pulse clients have you talked to that have been bummed Lindley's not on the other end?
Well, I'm bummed Lindley's not on the other end as well, but no, I mean we are pretty well staffed. I have had Joe hop on a few things as well, so people that were bummed Lindley is gone are excited to talk to Joe again. So I don't know. I mean, we're all kind of doing something similar, right? We're like, as you kind of mentioned, we all do different roles that maybe we did a few years ago, but in like a different context. So I don't know. It's okay, but he's definitely been missed on a few calls.
York, what do you? I mean, obviously you have, we have Sam, an iOS developer, and we've talked about iOS for quite a while. What do you see as the large, like, kind of stepping stones on the timeline there?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, and I've talked with Ingalls and Chapa as well, our UI designer, but yeah, really just figuring out what we want the first V1 deliverable to be, like what functionality we want roped into that first iteration, and then once we have that dialed, which I think we largely do right now, some of the most basic functionalities that an athlete might use in the TRAQ web app, I think will be rolled into the first iteration. But yeah, in terms of milestones and so forth, I think once we get Sam up to speed on some of the APIs and so forth that we've got already developed, and some of them that we've just more recently developed, I think we'll be able to make pretty good progress pretty quickly. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't want to say that we're gonna have a full app.
April 1st, baby. What do we got?
Opening day. There it is. That's the surprise release date. Not really.
It's really. A different.
But yeah, go ahead.
It's a different use case too, right? Because most of our users on a phone are all athletes, so we did something similar in terms of like a mobile redesign from our product designer last year. But we would pretty much just try to replicate like filling out a workout, completing your data, and then add in things that are more specifically helpful for an app. So something like notifications is tough to deliver from, a web app. but is much easier to do on like a native app for athletes. Something like chat is a lot easier to do on an app as opposed to just on a web app. So there's just a lot of like natural things we can deliver on. But to start with, you just need to use it to like complete your workout and do like the core actions that athletes do in a given day. And thankfully, especially for what we've done internally, we've built most of the APIs already. So we should have a pretty full set of tools to be able to use and not have to go like build those in real time. Because like a lot of what we've done with TRAQ internally too is to try to automate as many actions as we can. So like a lot of the developments that you've seen might not be like full on front end improvements, but especially internally can save quite a bit of time by not requiring trainers to do a lot of like the same actions that they've had to do. And so that'll just be more beneficial to start app development too. Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this before, and obviously you've talked about it, I'm sure, in many TRAQ talks. Probably one of your most overused phrases after we try to fix Google Sheets or get out of Google Sheets. By the way, we're not out of Google Sheets yet, but I mean, everything TRAQ does, we don't use Google Sheets for. But no, I mean, yeah, we bet like a while back, like 5 years ago, I think at this point, or even further back when we first started designing the infrastructure of TRAQ. But Boddy can correct me, but we basically bet on ourselves as being the frontier of a player development facility, and like things we thought were important and things we saw as needing to be automated, we built that in, and prioritized like building TRAQ around that. And I think a lot of this is really starting to pay off. Like obviously we dealt with like a volume of athletes and a volume of technologies, challenges that only, were specific to our facility. But I think as many facilities have either seen what we've done or face a lot of the challenges themselves, in 2023 now, where players do care about multiple technologies integrating into a back end that features like the stats all in one place. Players do care about like doing online and remote stuff and being able to generate insights from that stuff as well. I think it's starting to pay off really nicely. I was going to ask, do you have any early thoughts on dealing with TRAQ premium clients, which we rolled out I don't know at this point a few months ago, but essentially is our highest paid tier of TRAQ software?
I mean, pretty much all of those were focused. We have a couple clients that were real early adopters, right? And so we've been able to be really high touch with them, building out their custom reports and then delivering them so that trainers don't really have to do anything in regards to like a weekly report or see who gets better in a fall. There are a couple colleges that are using Stuff Plus on a per pitch basis, right? And so really trying to just limit the amount of time that coaches have to spend, and then a varying different types of reports for different types of seasons, right? So like you might want like a really in-depth game report once the season starts, but in the fall you might be much more focused on like who's in a velocity phase, who's looking to gain weight, and like a lot of it this year was trying to figure out what the main things that each school has the capability of collecting and what they care about, and then replicating that. So, people are going into their first season with having those access to those tools, and then this summer we'll be able to kind of plan out what we built a lot that was purely custom and try to deliver on parts of those to schools who want to jump on board this summer.
I was going to say, I was going to ask you, York, we haven't talked about this in a while, and obviously there have been other priorities, but what's your vision, or what are you thinking, what are your thoughts on where Ed's free kind of is right now, and how that blends with EDU? Do you have any, it's been a minute since we poured really resources into either talking about it from a marketing point of view, from a product management point of view, what would you like to see there in an ideal world?
So let me just give a little bit of context on what that is for folks that maybe missed some of the news there. So way back, we had a paid version of Edge. It ended up migrating mostly into TRAQ Then we had a free site to where some of the tools that we didn't charge for were available. Those have all since moved into edu.drivelinebaseball.com. You can go there, create a free account, and enroll in the free tools bundle, and you can get a slew of tools. I think overall, where they live has been pretty successful. It pairs nicely. So if you've never been to edu.drivelinebaseball.com, that's also where, if you're a Plus member with Driveline, you get access to exclusive content and so forth. But I think having it there has been all right. But I think particularly some of these tools, become maybe more mature, I think there'll be different variations that folks will have access to. So one good example is the intended zone tracker. It's pretty useful, particularly if you're a smaller school, don't have a lot of tech. If you want to, in real time, track the command of a given pitcher in a bullpen setting, a game setting, that functionality exists for free in there. But if you're a Plus member, for example, at the end of that session, you'll have the option to then generate a button, or to generate a report off just clicking a button from all that data that's just been collected.
Generate the button, dude. That's way more fire.
Everybody's gonna start writing code now. But no, I think as some of these tools gain maturity and we figure out where their final resting place will be, I'd say there'll be more functionality open to the public as we figure out where certain functionality will slot in. So yeah, the intended zone tracker, contact tracker as well. That's the hitting counterpart to intended zone tracker. I think there's a chance that some of that could live in TRAQ. Right now, it's pretty at home, I think, in the education platform. But yeah, I think as a whole, as some of these reporting tools become more mature, I think we could see certain aspects of it get rolled out for free to the public.
Yeah. I mean, definitely a lot of firepower. That's kind of those too. So I think that's going to be an interesting thing to balance. And we're still looking, I think, internally right now for a director of EDU as well, so someone to kind of take the vision on because I mean there's a lot of value in those products, and I think like it's been driven in the past by a pretty strong vision. Actually, funnily enough, I think I told some of you guys this, but like a week ago, I was on the call with with a couple people off the data team on the Thunder. I got connected there for my friend in high school. His cousin works as a data architect for the Thunder. And like one of the questions, the director of player development, shout out Greg if you're listening, who asked some really good questions. He was like, it was funny because he's asking like all these questions that were good questions, but I've done just enough. Like I've had like just enough convos, either like on the podcast or talking to the people that had like answers kind of, like pretty queued up for it. And like one of the final ones, he's like, what about teaching other coaches? Like, you guys ever do like coaches development or like what? And I was like, yeah, foundations of pitch. I was like, I was just like, yeah, EDU, and I was like sending him like Thinkific links on the Zoom. But it was just funny because like it made me like feel better about our. I mean, not better. I didn't feel poor about it, but like made me feel really good about like our, like back when we started rolling out foundations of pitching. Like in the back of my mind, I'm like, all right, well, like is this another product that we're just kind of like rolling out here and like pushing it towards like another product, or like using like getting customers in the door and kind of like using this as an endpoint, which is fine. And this is something that like businesses do anyways. But like I was like, okay, yeah, actually like this does tie in really nicely, especially now that I have a director of player development from another sports team asking me questions. But I was going to change the subject a little bit because I still technically have a data engineering internship open. Boddy, do you want to kind of recap the sports science hiring season? Up to you how much you want to shout out people. I mean, your boy drops names all the time on this podcast. So, any people you're excited about, or how'd the sports science application go?
Yeah. Let me pull up. I want to make sure I get the schools.
Yeah, right. Tell us your favorite ones. Ranked them.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, like
my favorite, least favorite.
Yeah. Least favorite is Anthony Brady. It's so like I said, we had a huge, a lot of headcount to fill, both in Arizona and Washington, and so we had a ton of applicants. So we were, again, I think if it's not every year, it's like pretty close to it. That we've hired someone out of Point Limones, which is where Arnel Aguinaldo runs his lab, and that program is obviously very successful both in baseball. They were in the finals of the College World Series Division II, so the baseball program is great. Shout out Justin James. Awesome guy there. And then we hired Jason Hashimoto from there. He's also from Oregon State, but he's at Point Loma now, so that's a great hire. Nicholas Meyer from University of Dayton, Clayton Thompson from Augustana University, and then we actually have Hannah Edwards from UNLV. She's here now, and then Alex Eldridge from St. Louis. Alex is actually a current intern in high performance, but he's going to move over to like a dual role. So it's 4.5 people coming over on the sports science side. Pretty excited. Hannah will train here and then go to Arizona. So they're all great, either postgraduate or in their graduate programs. Really knowledgeable. So it's always very humbling to be a college dropout and be managing people that have accomplished a hell of a lot more in academia than you. So it is cool.
I mean, don't tell him yet, bro. Don't tell him you're a college dropout yet. Hit him with a couple on board. No, it's all right. It's all right. You gotta let him know. Yeah, radical honesty, up front. It's fine. No. Yeah, I mean, one thing I've always liked about our job applications, including like when I first saw it and applied, was stressing that college EDU is not required. Which obviously, I mean, we all know there's positive signal with specific colleges, or probably having like a college EDU, or at least some of it. But I think it's nice in a world where a lot of things are gated by at the end of the day, like pretty arbitrary guidelines. There's a lot more context that goes into someone's education than what college they went to, what their grades were in high school, what their grades were in college, things like that. So we've always had like a pretty interesting and diverse application pool, and have had like successful interns from various backgrounds. I mean, I had Ethan Siegel. Ethan's obviously extremely bright, but we hired him like before he even started college, and that's been one of our best interns in my opinion. But on the data engineering internship, currently still hiring. We have a couple people in the interview pipeline right now, so if you're interested, I would say immediately apply. But yeah, that's been going decent. I told this story, I think, to at least one of you guys, but have a funny add-on. But I put together, so the process was, you apply. There's a couple questions, like more about like rating your coding competency, like on a scale of 1 to 5, answering a few questions that filter a little bit. I asked for open source work. I asked for like a research question for you to come up with. So if you like completely mail in the what do you want to work for Driveline, I'm probably just immediately thumbs down you and not really looking at the rest of your resume or application. If your coding competency is like under a 4 on multiple things, it's going to be a no, just because we need people in the door like right away. But for the most part, like anyone half decent. I mean, when I say half decent, I'm talking about clip it. No, I've said way worse stuff on the pod. It's all good. Anyone that has like a strong, compelling resume and application for a data engineer, I'm probably sending a questionnaire too. And I put together this questionnaire. And one of the things I did is the questionnaire has a few. One of them is like a picture of a data table, and like ask them like get feedback on the data table. So it's obviously very specific. That's something like you have to like. It's very applied. There's a couple questions that are definitely like Googleable, or in today's terms like ChatGPTable. So what I did was the most like obvious one to me to plug in a ChatGPT. I generated a ChatGPT answer and had that there. And then when I was looking through the answers, like a few of them seemed like they were pretty fucking close. And then I sent this one to York. I sent one that seemed extremely similar, like to the point where York's like, wait, that's another answer? Like he thought, like you thought they were like both ChatGPT answers, right, York?
Yeah. No, I mean, I plugged them in before you even sent me those responses. I was like, let's see what they say. And like there were 3 points, and the responses on the dot were like the 3 exact topics. It was the biggest coincidence of all time. Yeah.
Like either straight copied and pasted, or they got a slightly different version, they got a slightly different version, or copied and pasted, or they honestly changed like 20% of the words in there. And I, like once I saw that, I said you can use whatever resources you want, but like obviously just basically copying and pasting an answer from ChatGPT is like not very compelling. And the person could have had a stronger application anyways. It certainly wasn't like, it was probably middle of the road. And I saw that, I was like, all right, it's I'm not reaching out for an interview. And then I sent out like a mass, like, hey, like, thanks for applying. We're moving on a different direction. And that person actually, this part I haven't told anybody, that person actually emailed me. Like the one person that emailed me for like feedback on the application was like, Yeah. I know some companies don't have a policy of getting back to people on why they reject their application, but I'm just curious, like, do you have any context or whatever, any like what I can do to improve? And I was like, I was like, I'm fine giving it to them. So I just dumped those screenshots back. I was like, yeah, probably like don't copy ChatGPT, and then also the definition of smash factor is incorrect. And I was like, also we're a startup, bro. We don't have any policy of not giving answers to rejected applicants. So, anyways, hopefully that didn't dissuade anyone from. I mean, obviously, I didn't dox the person or anything. So, if you're listening to this and you're worried about me roasting you, like, yeah, if you obviously ChatGPT, I'm gonna roast your ass, but I'm not gonna obviously out you on who it is. So that's how data engineering applications going.
Or use ChatGPT and say that you did, right? Like, here's how I think I think you'd be down with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Building a model, but like, just copy paste it. Did that guy get back to you after you teed him up?
No, I don't think so. It was and again, like I'm sure the guy's great, and like he had a pretty decent application. But it was just funny because I wasn't gonna say anything. It wasn't like the moment I saw it, I was like, oh, this right? Yeah. I think I said sure. I mean, one of the things that stuck out to me is that your answer looked extremely similar to ChatGPT's answer.
It's very diplomatic of you.
Yeah. But anyways, learning experience for you. I figure we don't have to have the inaugural first episode of us back go too long. The only other thing I wanted to mention and shout out is, last time, well, I guess he's been on one time without me, but last time I had Max Engelbrekt on the podcast, jokingly, I'll usually like riff and kind of throw some random, some uncomfortable questions the guest way. I asked him if he was single or not. He said he was single at the time, which I like to give myself credit for a little bit of a wingmaning action there. Max, what's up with you, man? You single? What's your marital status?
I think I said last time that I wasn't going to say, so I should probably say the same thing again. No, I got engaged. Also, before our first date, the one thing she did, or probably multiple, but one thing she did to make sure I wasn't like crazy was listen to this podcast. Which is pretty funny. So she'll probably listen to this too. So, yeah.
That's a wing.
There you go.
But I have no single guys on the pod, so I can't wing right now. Yo, can you guys wing me real quick?
Give it a few episodes, maybe.
You want me to?
But okay, sweet. Like I said, I'm pumped for new stuff brewing and Driveline R&D. I think we've finally settled down a little bit after some chaotic stuff, and now we're I'm excited to go to war with these guys. And any final words for any fans that are thinking about tuning in on the third season or second season, I'd say. Of the R&D podcast.
Get used to ChatGPT. It's going to change. Don't copy and paste, but I mean, it's start thinking how it can change the business, your life, whatever.
You're down to revise your 15 answer or what?
Yeah, no comment.
All right, sweet. We'll see what I have on next, but peace. Thanks, guys.
Deuces.